Sounds good. And I hit the recording. So here's the thing, chat and friends. You've seen these build videos by now, but in case you haven't, I go get an expert and we talk to them about their favorite faction. But that's not what we're doing today because this was all a bait and switch. So I'm a Skaven main. Pride of Rohan is a high elf main. And
Hello.
I just finished the End Times books. And I feel like we need to come together and offer an apology because the Skaven killed like half the races on the planet off screen. So if your favorite race was like the Lizardmen, yeah, get fucked. Skaven just said nope, and you didn't get to see that happen. And then Ryder, the High Elves did a lot of oopsies and kind of caused the end times because Teclis is a fucking idiot in those books. So you and I got to come together and fix this because we fucked up. So that's why I brought you here today.
I don't think there's a high elf person that would enjoy talking about the end times, to be honest. Oh my god. So much pain.
Okay, we'll get to the build guide in a second, but dude, actually, the only high elf that came away clean in the end times is fucking Imric. Imric did his best. Like when your god shows up and tells you support Malekith or the world will end, and you just like you shrug and you're like, I guess that's what I'm doing now. And then every other high elf legendary lord becomes an incarnate of a magic, and you just get fucking left behind. And you have a horse. I don't even know what happened to his dragon, but you just have a horse, and it's like, go fight this endless tide of beastmen on a horse with no magic. And he's like, fuck, I guess. And he does it.
He stood on business. He stood on business for sure.
Imric's great. All right, but enough fucking around. Let's do this thing. You were described how the video actually works before we hit record. For anybody who this is the first video you clicked on, this video will be in two parts. First part is Ryder will tell us the best used case of each unit, whether or not it is currently strong on this patch, notwithstanding. And then the second part will ask him for 2 or 3 hypothetical matchups, and there we can talk more about what is strong on this patch as of January 6th, 2025. Sounds good? Ryder, take it away.
All right, sounds good. Do I start with lords or go straight for infantry?
Lords would be good.
All right, so we got the prince and the princess. Can you allow multiple lords real quick? I'll pull it both.
Yeah.
Nice. So these two are pretty interchangeable just because you use them for their mounts. The princess has a use case because she has like a pseudo arrows of Kernos ability, so you can use it to snipe like a single entity. Like the only reason I really bring it most of the time is to snipe like a hell cannon type artillery piece because she can constantly shoot it on the flying mount, and she has the arrows of Kernos to do burst damage onto it. The prince is just budget Imric, and we'll get to Imric in a bit, but basically a combat character. He has a Star Dragon. Star Dragons are cool. And he can buff his weapon strength and melee attack to really be better than the normal Star Dragon you get on the roster.
All right. So I'm no high elf apologist, but what the actual fuck is the power creep on some of these items? 24 melee attack for the princess, 30% base weapon damage. That's too strong. That's got to be a one-time use. We can't.
Listen, I've been lobbying for buffs, bro, but I don't know why. The Horn of All is literally Flaming Sword of Ruin without any imbuements, and it's one-time use.
One-time use. You can't let that shit fly.
It's just, what am I even supposed to do with that?
If you're on your dragon mount,
you have the Glade Lord with the Helm of Discord, bro.
That is tragic.
Well, but yeah, Prince and Princess, they're pretty dope. You don't see them too much because of Castellars, but I still like to use them. All right, so next we got Imric. Honestly, I could have probably grouped Imric into that section as well. But Imric's just, you normally see him because he's very strong with healing, and he does provide good support utility with Lord of Dragons and Dragonhorn. Lord of Dragons in particular is very good for singling out very strong units the Hyos normally can't deal with. Because it's literally minus 40 melee attack. Like, that's just super strong. Mm-hmm. But Horn of Dragons has good utility too. Allows the Spearman to punch up. Star Lance is good because it turns him into a raid boss. Not much to say about Imric. I think he's pretty self-explanatory. Big, strong single entity.
based.
Archmage, just your generic caster. You get all the lures that high elves get, and allows you to go cheap. Sometimes you can bring on a horse just to have the caster and the lord together in one, and lets you go wide. You can bring on the eagle for cheap, pretty cheap too, with a decent kit. Like I think a common one is Burning Head, eagle caster against like undead factions and stuff. She's cheap, like 1400. Lets you go really wide. She can also bring a dragon, but she won't be able to bring the Armor of the Stars. Armor of the Stars can be useful. It's basically over a minute of invisibility, so you can protect it from Lord Snipes pretty early on if you're expecting that. It allows you to do some sneaky shenanigans too, like Armor of the Stars and Uranian's Thunderbolt was a fun one to do. But yeah, not much to say about her. She's got a horse mount, a chariot, a eagle, and a dragon. Normally you see horse, eagle, and dragon. I have brought her on the chariot before. Chariots are okay. But there's just not much place for it. You'd rather just take an actual chariot unit, like a Warline chariot or something, if you're looking for that kind of utility. Alright, we got Alithanar. What do I even say about him? I've stopped bringing him so bad. The poor man, he misses all the shots he takes. I don't know. If I had to bring him, it would be for the missile resistora. But he's kinda hard to use. Some use cases for him are like sniping elite cavalry models, sniping artillery models. His range is decent, but he doesn't have stock.
Wait,
So
he doesn't have stock?
No, he doesn't have stock.
What the fuck are we doing? Why?
I know. If you want stock, you have to use your mislead, like at the start of the game.
I mean, I guess, but why doesn't he have stock?
I don't know. He should probably. I mean, Oxyotl has it, right? Come on.
Shadow Warriors and Shadow Walkers have stock. He trained them to have stock, and he's like, nah, fuck it.
I don't know if they think his range attack is too strong or something, but it's really not. You could really use the stock. I don't know. Okay. But yeah, if he had stock, I could see him being much more viable. But he provides some utility for kites. He has like the speed, the Shadow Crown, which is speed and melee defense, as if an enemy is nearby. But he's been kind of power crept on. There's not much use cases for him right now, unfortunately.
How often are we gonna say that?
And this roster, a good bit.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, so we got Tyrion and we got Teclis, the same character, but one's combat and one's spellcaster. So we got let's get Tyrion first. So Tyrion's got the horse mount. He's very fast. He does good damage, and he has magic and fire attacks now. Thank the Lord. Oh, okay. What you use Tyrion for is you want a sticky combat lord that you don't want to bring healing in this build because he heals himself with Heart of Avalorn. Sunfang is okay at clearing chaff, and Fate and Riposte makes him a bit tankier for a good while. I don't really like Fate and Riposte too much. It's definitely useful, especially if you're expecting to be debuffed. But he already has good stats, so the plus 24, plus 24. You usually just wait until they debuff you and then pop it, in my opinion. But good combat character. He's very tanky. I know he memed on a little bit, but I think he's solid, like a B tier lord. So he's kind of overshadowed by like a Dragon Lord or something in terms of utility, but you can surprise your opponent with him sometimes and sometimes catch them off guard with him.
I think if he had ITP, he would legit be meta, but so many times he terror routes before Heart of Avalorn procs.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why Fate and Riposte is important and saving it is important, because when he gets that low, he needs to stay longer so he doesn't get that damage sustain penalty. Like it's damage sustain and then like recently taking damage. You want to mitigate that as much as possible. Taco likes to bring him with stand your ground just to make sure he doesn't route. But then he gets really expensive with this kit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the Tyrion rundown. Decent lord. The fire attack style is definitely relevant because he can fight like a healing kind of lord and nerf it. He won't beat Kugath in combat, unfortunately, still, but he does get enough damage.
He tries.
He tries. Alright, Teclis. Arguably my most picked lord ever. But let's go over it. So he's got a good spell kit, a very synergetic with the rest of the roster. Like, easy spell kit with him is Flock of Doom Regrowth and Net. Battlefield control, you get healing, and you got a damage dealing spell. You can make some cases for the other spells too. Like the Magic Imbuement is good. Enfeebling Foe is good. Chain Lightning is niche but fun. It's fun to use on like Cavalry. It actually does like insta kill Cavalry, especially with his Greater Arcane Conduit buffing it. But synergies for Teclis is he has Kindle Flame, so you can use him for like a fire synergy build. And you can also imbue fire with the Flaming Sword to even have your army do more damage. Sword of Teclis is good for like Flock of Doom and Regrowth. You can heal cap a Star Dragon with like an Overcast Regrowth and Sword of Teclis. And you can really punish a box with Overcast Flock of Doom and Sword of Teclis combo because it gives the spell mastery. But the spell mastery does not affect the net, so you have to keep that in mind. Like don't pop Sword of Teclis and net something expecting the net to be longer. It doesn't work that way.
That's weird.
I also think it's weird, but probably for the best, because if we had like a 30-minute net, that would be crazy. 30-second net.
No, 30-minute.
No. Karen. He also does come with the Arcade Phoenix mount, which I 1000% believe is overpriced as hell.
No, it's wildly overpriced. I can't bring myself to take it.
There are some matches where you can take it for the extra HP on Teclis and like miss out. Well, not miss out. It's fire resist and physical resist. I find him good against Siege on the Phoenix because he's like immune to blue fire. Not really immune. He just takes less. The Bound Fiery Convocation on Teclis is also nice. Like you can net and like punish some kind of, it's like a Zargard or something. Not something you usually can't deal with on the roster because of how you have to play high elves.
Mm-hmm.
And Scroll of Hoeth is niche. I think it's a bit overcosted because 200 just for power recharge and you have to wait 120 seconds again. No. It's very niche, but you can use it. I've used it before against like Lizardmen to keep Mazdamundi from blowing up my troops for a little bit. But yeah, that's the rundown on Teclis. I think decent cast to Lord, 2 mount options, decent spell kit, good synergy with the rest of the roster. All right, now we got All Reliable Larry and the Grim. Honestly, they're kind of the same. This one's way better than the other. So we got Alariel, who has a horse mount and a Great Eagle. Generally, you take Alariel for healing. She has Earthblood and Star of Avalorn, which are both really good. And with Earthblood, you can spam like Life Bloom and Shield of Sapphire as passives. Keeps the troops topped up. The other important part about Larry is Boon of Isha, because she gives a passive magic attacks to everybody nearby her in 35M. And the magic attacks come with ITP, which is very important. And if you could take Tyrion with it, he'd be OP. But alas, we can only have Orion and Ariel, not Tyrion and Alariel.
Yeah.
Such is life. Shieldstone of Issa is pretty niche, but it can be good. Plus 10 physical resist doesn't really sound too good, but there are units on the High Elf roster that have innate physical resist already, like Rangers, Phoenix Guard, and Dragon Princes. So the plus 10 onto them stacks so they can get Phoenix Guard with that alone to plus 40 physical resist. which is pretty tanky if you don't have any magic damage. So it's something to consider in some matchups. Other than that, your kit is pretty useful. So you got healing, Shield of Thorns is fun. Tempest is a good control tool. Arcane Unforging is also a good control tool, but just not for battlefield control, more so controlling how when your opponent can use spells. It's basically a Spirit Leech that adds cooldown. The original Silence. Fast Protection is good. It's good for like cheap spamming of the passives, I think. And Banishment is just it's to be it's a bit overcasted for what you get, but overcast Banishment can definitely punish like a Cathay Blob in the late game.
Oh yeah, Banishment has an overcast.
Yeah, the overcast is like more damage, like double the damage. It keeps the same AP though, so you get 7 AP but 14 damage.
It's just interesting because like Banishment is a very common spell, but as a bound spell.
Yeah, I think it's the Slan gets the regular Banishment.
Volkmar, the Slan.
Yeah, but yeah.
Right.
Decent spell kit on Larish. The horse mounts get the eagle mounts suffering a little bit. It was nerfed in Warhammer 2. She lost martial prowess on the eagle, whereas everyone else has martial prowess. I feel she could get it back now, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a high elf main. Eltharion. My lord, what have they done to you? He's actually decent. He struggles a little bit because dragons do what he does better. So you can take a high mage on a dragon, and then you get a better combatant and better. You have a breath attack in addition to him. But he has high magic, which is useful. It's got healing. It's got Hand of Glory. Tempest is good. Soul Punch is good. Like they're all good. They're all good spells, maybe except Fiery Convocation because it's kind of unreliable if you don't have something to stop the unit you're Fiery Convocationing. But Helm of Yvress, I've never had a use case for it. It's pretty bad. And Fang Sword helps buff up his stats, but it's 200 on an already expensive character if you're taking Stormwing. Mistwalker's Barrage is okay right now. I wouldn't call it reliable, but it's okay. Like sometimes you're in a blob of chosen halberds and it does good damage into that. Sometimes it lets you run out scot-free with the explosion, knocking them over. The Eltharian's a hard case to make use case for because he's just a high mage without breath attacks.
Hmm.
Let me see. Let me compare the costs real quick. So you have a high mage. They are the same cost base price. Eltharian's slightly better combatant, but the dragon has a 1700 more HP and a breath attack. So you get a little bit more utility with the Archmage on the dragon over Eltharion. But I have won games with Eltharion. He can definitely pay for himself. But I think the power creep on SEMs in Warhammer 3 definitely hurts what he can do on a Griffin.
He doesn't have martial prowess on his Griffin.
No, he does not. He only hits Grim Discipline on his foot and Warded Horse.
Huh.
And Grim Discipline is good, though. Is Martial Mastery without any HP cap. So you just have it forever.
Yeah, that is pretty strong. It's just it's interesting he doesn't get anything on Stormwing.
Yeah. Even the Prince and Princess don't get the martial prowess on the Griffin. I think after Eagles, on the character listings, they don't get martial prowess. They're considered a monster instead of a character.
Okay. Yeah, Imric doesn't get martial prowess either.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's also why Larry not getting the martial prowess on an eagle is just out of place. Because all the eagle mounts have it except her. Okay, so that's Lords. Heroes, they're very easy to go over. So you have the noble and you have the handmaiden. They have both have horse mounts. One's a ranged attack and one's purely melee. The noble usually sees play over the handmaiden because you pay more for the handmaiden. But I use the noble for the horse character. He's good. He's got good stats. 60 plus melee attack basically. Or anything large and 60 melee defense. It's very hard to. He's a very hard nut to crack for most things. Like he's good against monsters, really good. The noble has the sacred incense ability. Pretty niche, but extra 10 missile resist that stacks with everything else. Characters already have innate missile resist. Can make them tanky against some factions. No one uses the Great Eagle mount because it doesn't really provide much outside of a regular Great Eagle, and it costs a lot more. Because he does get more stats and he gets martial prowess, but at the end of the day, he's still an Eagle character.
He loses armor piercing.
Yeah, he does, and anti-large.
Huh.
He basically just turns into Armored Eagle, essentially. Which we already know not as to not be a great combatant, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
But on the horse, he's good. On the chariot, he's still good. They should give him his armor piercing back. I'm not gonna lie, but you can still use it. I've used it before. It's fine. It works. It's functional now. The handmaiden, she's a bit harder to use. Her ranged attack tends to miss, so I use her as a melee combatant. If you don't need the armor piercing and the armor, you can bring her. Like I'll bring her into like Slanesh or Demons of Chaos instead of the noble. She can buff melee attack too with Horn of Isha. Is +5, which you don't really need to buff on this roster, to be honest. But it is nice to have if you know you're going to be debuffed. Yeah, outside of she's very hard to use, kind of clunky. CA, please fix. Okay, I don't think we need to go over the mage too much. She's just a generic mage. You got all your lures of magic. She has a good recharge item and a good power reserve item, which is 3 use. It gives you about 21 wins if you use all 3, which is pretty good. I can't remember the math on it. I just remember it as 20s, 21, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
On the horse, she's good. On foot, she's really good. And on the chariot, she's kind of good. I would say she's best on the chariot. I don't think I've taken her on the chariot in a while. Normally, it's just better to take her on the horse because the chariot gets stuck sometimes. Yeah, easy mage. Use her as you normally would. The lore master, his brother is starving. He's got good lores, good magics. Harmonic Convergence is nice. Spirit Leech is great. Withstands Wild Form is niche. Earthblood is great. Melkot's is great. Shems is okay. I like to take it with the evasion. And Lore Master's Cloak is pretty good to stack on with spell resistance because that's something you're weak to as high as the spells. And the +8 leadership is a bit overcosted at 150. But like, it's good for blobs, I think. Like his kit is very good for he's a tanky foot character that can work in blob kind of builds with the spell resistance and extra leadership. His main issue is his HP. Because even though he has good stats, his HP is really low. So if you get debuffed and you're fighting Exalted Keeper, you're dead. It's over, my guy. That thing's gonna like 3-hit you. Okay, that's the heroes, I think. So, infantry. Oh boy. You got the OP Spearmen and the Chad Rangers. So these two are used literally the same. I don't think people kind of realize that. They're just you're sending them to block things basically. Spearmen, you'll see more because they have charge defense and charge reflection, and they have better melee defense. So these guys hold more than they kill, and rangers kill more than they hold. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So spearmen, they have shields, they have 40 armor, which is pretty decent. The spearmen and rangers generally they trade the same into most things like marauders and like blackheart corsairs and stuff like that. They literally do the same damage, but spearmen will burn out. The rangers will burn out faster than the spearmen. Sorry. So the rangers, they both punch down better than they punch up. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
But mostly you'll just, because since they do the same thing, you'll just see spearmen most of the time. If I was to make a use case for rangers, is when you're expecting a lot of chaff that you need to punch down into, because they will do it faster and they will probably take less damage from mass chaff builds. So like Skaven or Beastmen. The Scions of Methland are not that good. Not much to be said about them. They're just the overcosted spearmen with really good melee defense. Like they hold, but they also just get burning headed and then rout, just like every other spearman in this game.
Mm-hmm.
White Lions and Silvern Guard I consider interchangeable, mostly because I use them for the same thing, which is anti-large. White Lions do have cases outside of being anti-cavalry, though. They can be used against mass armor pushes and stuff like that. They struggle a bit. They have sub 40 melee attack, even with martial prowess. I feel the marker of a good mid-tier unit is that they can hit the 40s. Because if you look at like Empire Spearmen, they have like 42 melee defense, sorry. Like, once you can crack that kind of melee defense is when you're good, and White Lions kind of struggle against that. The Silverin versus White Lion dilemma is, do I need the armor piercing and do I need the extra melee attack versus the melee defense? And generally speaking, you just want the melee defense from the Silverin Guard if you're going that route. But like some like the missile resistance of the White Lions makes them more viable for rushing than the Silverin Guard, I think. The Silverin Guard do better at just standing still and charge reflecting things.
Hmm.
But White Lions support a more aggressive style of play, Silverin less so. The Pure Marine are pretty nice too. Armor Sundering is very useful in the High Elf roster. And Guardian's good for blob builds. Alright, my favorites. PD's Guard and Swordmasters. The same thing from the White Lions and Silver Guard. Except one's completely anti-infantry and one's really good at anti-large. Swordmasters, pretty hard to use. I don't think they're tanky enough for their price. They 90 armor and 36 melee defense without martial mastery. They tend to just get chipped down really fast, even in chaff. Especially because after they're done fighting chaff, they're very tired. Their armor is already plummeting down into like the 60s when they're exhausted. So usually they don't get to see their prime targets very early on because of how thin you are. You have to have them fight chaff first. And after they're done fighting the chaff, they can't fight the intended targets, or the like chosen type, Zargard and stuff like that. Phoenix Guard have a little bit more utility. Just like the Spearman and Silver Guard, charge defense and charge reflection is really strong. They come with innate physical resist of 30, and ITP, they just stick around forever. They have 90 leadership. The only way you're getting them to rout is like overcast Pit of Shades on top of them and Yeah, that would probably route them if they're fighting something already. Generally speaking, you'll see the Phoenix Guard more than the Sword Masters, and usually you'll just see one or two of them. You won't see them spammed in 3x3s. The Keepers of the Flame is a good upgrade onto the Phoenix Guard if you have the extra cash. The 100 leadership, they're with the ITP, they're basically unbreakable. And the magic attacks and immune to contact effects is really useful. Because they already have low weapon strength, so immune to poison is just good. I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen them get exhausted and poisoned and they can't even be like a red crested skink or something. But yeah, that's the infantry summed up.
All right.
You got anything to say?
Nope.
All right, let's go to archers. So we have archers light armor, and the talons of Torquilada. So archers and archers light armor literally do the same thing. They're just the same unit. They're just good range, good poke, and cheap. They don't have firewall moving, but they have martial prowess. So they're a little bit tankier. They'll fight off a zombie, maybe fight off a skeleton warrior kind of guy, but after that, they're going to get outclassed and really. They're not raid bosses by any means. But you definitely pay for what you get here. They'll definitely pay for themselves if given the right opportunities. And sometimes if you have cash left over, getting the extra 25 armor is definitely worth it for 25 gold. The plus for melee defense is kind of negligible, but you take what you get on this roster.
Yeah.
The talons of Torquilada are just an upgraded archer light armor, but they have fire damage, fire resistance, and more weapons, more base missile strength. Yeah. They're kind of good. I'm not gonna lie. They synergize with the roster pretty well. They synergize better when dragons have fire attacks, but you can still see them assist their Ravelorn builds or like to pair with the Fireborn. Good damage, good range. They're not immune to Burning Head, but they take much less damage from Burning Head. So sometimes your opponent might make the mistake of Burning Heading them. They just shrug it off. Full models, everything. Just keep shooting. It's very fun. Alright, so Sea Guard. Also a pretty easy to use unit. They're basically an archer that defends themselves usually pretty well. They will probably lose to a dedicated anti-infantry piece, but they take a lot longer to beat than the archer. So they're good for like your flanks. And the shielded one is also really good against missile heavy factions like Kislev or in the Mirror or against Wood Elves. The range is less than the archer, which is definitely an issue sometimes, because the 180 range does give you an edge usually in most missile fights over the 160. Because most other archers are 140 to 160 range, I believe, on most of the rosters. They're in between that ratio, so you're losing range into where most factions can counter skirmish with, but you do get a lot of melee capacity. You'll shrug off most light cavalry with Sea Guard. You could probably tank like Empire Knight type cavalry as well. The Storm Riders are nice. They are only like firewall moving basic archer that's under 850. And they're good for like just sticking around. They don't route as fast as the other Sea Guard. They got good stats. However, they you don't really see them because they're 800 is pretty expensive for what you get with them. They're not that much of an upgrade over Sea Guard. In any case, you're taking Sea Guard so that you can like not really move forward but stay still and defend the position. So yeah, that's Sea Guard. Shadow Warriors and Shadow Walkers are interchangeable. Some definitely think Shadow Warriors are better. I do like Shadow Walkers too. They pair very well with Plague of Rust and Takite builds. The main problem with Shadow Walkers is they have no HP and they have 60 models versus the 80 models of the Shadow Warriors. They're decent melee combatants. If they get compromised, they will die, but they'll take longer to do so than most other kite archers. Both variants, I'd say. Shadow Walkers and Shadow Warriors do not like heavy charge damage. They do not like shock cavalry. If you can defend them from, if you had to defend them from a dive of dervishes or wing lancers, block the wing lancers. They can probably tank the dervish. The Shadow Walkers versus Shadow Warriors is you get poison and you get better accuracy. However, you get a much you get a not so tanky unit is the problem. However, if you're going for like a Lord Snipe build, if you're expecting something without armor, or you're bringing Plague of Rust to make the armor 0, Shadow Walkers definitely can snipe that Lord. Especially if you bring a net, they lock on. They got the Waywatcher accuracy, but not the Waywatcher missile strength, unfortunately. The Gray are also pretty nice. They're good for like 360 Vanguard builds. You put them in the back to snipe like an artillery piece. They got snipe, so they're generally pretty good at sniping artillery, like Empire mortars or something. And sometimes they don't notice, sometimes they do notice. Usually, if you're distracting them enough, they won't notice when you start to shoot them until it's like already offline. But yeah, the Gray are you pay a lot, but you get some utility. I think they're not useless, but they're map dependent. Because there's no reason, if you're taking a regular kite build, there's no reason to pay the extra 200 for snipe. They're going to get spotted anyway. Sisters of Avalorn are really good. Really good. However, they're weak to missiles and they have no armor, so they do bad in counter trades with lower tier archers. So they're kind of hard to protect. Usually I like to bring one. And you pair them with a Talon of Torquilada for the extra fire synergy. And the closest thing you have to a gun unit, because they're your armor-piercing missile unit. So with the synergy, they do really good damage on the focus fire. Generally, you pair them with net. You don't have to. You can use like Hand of Glory to buff the reload speed. You can use fire imbuements to just make them hit very hard. But I say the application is niche. But they're like a high risk, high reward unit. If you can get them to work, they will pay for themselves 3 times over. And it's pretty good to have that sometimes, as in your cards. Okay, that's missile units. Cavalry. Oh my god. Here we go. I'm gonna have to talk about silver helms.
It was coming eventually.
Alright, so you got Reavers, you have silver helms and silver helms with shields. Reavers are arguably up there for best light cavalry in the game. Martial prowess makes them very sticky. They have really fast speed at 92. Their leadership and armor is a bit lacking, and their weapon strength is pretty bad, but they do good on the charge. So, like, you'll use them. They all hunt dogs. They're almost fast enough to catch dogs. So if you keep the pressure on the dog, they will catch it. Vanguard deploy is very useful. Versus a silver helm, you definitely use them in kite builds because they're faster. They respawn quicker. I've noticed. They've got like the response timing of a dog, which is really good. They're better at just diving in the back line, I'd say. They're fast enough to dodge most missiles when they get focus fired. Silver helms. Where did I even begin? They're okay. They're roadblock units more so than shock cavalry. I think most people use them as. They're armored mass, so like you can use them to stop units from just plowing through your front line. That, and they have some use cases for roadblocking cavalry for like 3 minutes. They usually do lose in the end, but if you keep healing them, they might win. It depends on the kind of unit it is. They pair well with Plague of Rust or armor debuffs. They pair well with anything that reduces the enemy's damage, like Soul Blight or Transmutation of Lead. But
They have less melee defense than Illyrian Reavers.
Yeah, but you don't bring the regular silver helm. Usually, you bring the shield, which does have more.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but the shielded silver helms have the same melee defense as a dragon prince. So if you're going for a roadblock unit, and you know you're going up against, I don't know, armor piercing magic damage, like you're going up against seekers or something, it's just better to just take the silver helm over the dragon prince in that case, because both units are gonna die, but they hold the same time, so you might as well pay less for the 1,000 over the 1,400. So you're paying for them to die, but why can't they win something? CA, please. But silver helms have uses. They're okay. They could use some help. If you're using them, just keep in mind they don't trade well into most things. They do good charges into light infantry units like night goblins. I use them to charge night goblin fanatics. They can they can route them on the charge. It depends on how good the charge is. But yeah, we can compare dragon princes one time. So dragon princes are everything the silver helms are not. Yay. They have physical resist, more armor, more leadership, more damage, better charge bonus, and fire resist. So they pay to just be a better shot cavalry unit, and they are a good shot cavalry unit, and they pair very well with armor debuffs, just like the silver helms. They pair well with like physical resist items too, because they already have an innate physical resist, like a flesh to stone, almost physical resist caps them. Puts them at 80% physical resist. They'll tank a lot of stuff with that. However, with the abundance of magic damage in the game, they've kind of fallen off in terms of being the top dogs for their tier. Um, the Fireborn are a good upgrade to pay for. The fire attacks help negate healing, and the armor piercing is just it doesn't need to be said into anything about a shock cavalry charge unit. They get more fire resist as well. They get 35 over 25, which is good if you're going up against Chaos Dwarves or Khorne, who actually remove fire resistance from you. But yeah, all the high elf cavalry suffer from direct damage spells. But if you bring healing, you should be fine. All of them have use cases everywhere. Um, but yeah, they're pretty good. I guess we have chariots now. Ithamar versus Warline Chariot. They do the same thing basically. If you're expecting more armor, take the White Lion Chariot. If you're expecting chaff, take the Ithamar Chariot. I'm gonna put the Terranok Chariot in here too one time, because it also does the same thing, except the Terranok Chariot fulfills the attacking rule for a good while with 50 ammo. So you don't actually have to charge into things you don't want to charge into. You can kite. It's a very good kite tool, the Terranok Chariot. If you're rushing, you take the Ithamar Chariot or the Warline Chariot. If you're kiting, you take the Terranok Chariot, and it's like late game infantry assurance. But they all pretty much do the same thing. Martial prowess is really good on a chariot, and if you keep them topped up, they're really tanky with healing. But yeah, there's really not much difference between these three chariots in terms of melee capability. It's just that the one you pay the most for does better damage for sure. I've seen lion chariots duel demon slayers and do a lot of chunk onto them.
Hmm.
It was a very interesting interaction, to say the least. So they're definitely good against infantry characters that don't get knocked over. Okay, so that's chariots. You have your missile cavalry, Illyrian reavers. I think reavers spoil me a lot because they're good at diving. They're good at kiting. They're like a good, what do you call it? Like a glue unit. You can put them anywhere to do anything, and they'll usually do well. I don't think they excel at anything in particular, but the fact that they can do so much, they're definitely a piece unit. You probably see them a lot, in my opinion. If you take two Reavers and you have them focus fire Minotaur, they will kill the Minotaur. If you take 2 Reavers and you focus fire Kugath, they'll use all their ammo, but they'll kill Kugath.
That's pretty good.
Like, they're very useful. And the DPS is pretty much slept on, I think. But they do miss their shots. Like, if you're going kite for kite with somebody, let's say you're playing Warriors of Chaos, and you're skirmishing with the horsemen, you do miss a lot of your shots. So people don't think they do that much damage. But if you sit there and you shoot things, which is very easy to do with them, they reposition very fast. They turn around, they shoot, they run away, stop, shoot. They do a lot of DPS. I've killed like triple Minotaur builds with this 4 Reaver kite already. It's very, very fun. I don't think much people expect that to happen. But yeah, Reaver's the glue of the High Elf roster. Alright, monsters. I'll start with Warlions first, and then I'll go into the other ones because the others are interchangeable. So we got Warlions and the Warline ROR. They are like a pseudo chariot unit. They're good at actually stopping chariots. They have the best like mass on the roster in terms for a monstrous cavalry unit. Because they have 1500 mass, like a Dragon Prince is 12. Yeah, 1200 mass. Warlions do really good into chaff clearing. They do good at stopping chariots. They're very fast. They do good at road blocking higher mass units. Anything higher mass than the Dragon Prince, they can stop it usually. They can stop a Grail Knight from getting through a Silver Guard. So you use them as mass pieces and use them as chaff clearing. Like basically a pseudo chariot. They have missile resist, but they have low armor and low leadership. So if they take shock damage, they tend to just rout and not come back. But outside of that weakness, they usually do pretty good. So it's like a unit you can play around. You can definitely build into protecting them and reaping value from them. I'd say they're good into very chaff actions. They arguably do what the Rangers should do and much better. Okay, so we have Eagles and Phoenixes. I'm going to pair all of the same category. There's literally 5 units. Wow. Okay, the Eagle is the worst Phoenix, but what you pay for is you pay for speed and you pay for... That's it. It's a very niche unit. You can use them. They snipe foot mages pretty well. That's actually their only use case, in my opinion, is to go after the life mage on foot. But no armor piercing, low leadership, low armor, low melee defense. They don't really do other things well. So most of the time, you're just better off taking the Flamespire Phoenix, which is actually faster and does have armor piercing. All the Phoenixes kind of chase flyers pretty bad. That's just flyer jank, I think. But the Flamespire Phoenix, you take usually because it has the rebirth, it has the fire resistance, and it has its fire poops, the Wake of Fire. Wake of Fire is really good for just clearing a straight line of tight infantry. This Phoenix is good into Cathay. The Frostheart Phoenix is a tankier Phoenix. It deals less damage. It has more weapon strength, but it has less melee attack, I think. Yeah, there's melee attack and more melee defense. Slightly slower, tankier, more leadership. It's good for blob builds or goon squad builds because of its debuff. Minus speed, minus charge speed, minus base weapon, armor piercing, and melee attack.
Why does the attuned to magic thing give magic attacks on units that already have magic attacks?
So I'm pretty sure it's because at launch Phoenixes didn't have magic attacks, and when they had magic reserves is when you got magic attacks on them. But I believe that was changed. I don't know if that made it up to the... I didn't play Warhammer 2 at launch because I was busy. So I started like 2 patches in. So okay. I'm pretty sure it was patched by then, I think. I could be wrong. Maybe somebody in the comments could correct me.
Okay. Alright. It just seems weird.
Yeah, I agree. It should do something else by now. They could definitely look at it. The Arcade Phoenix does what the Flamespire Phoenix does, but better. It's a better melee combatant. You can definitely use it to duel a lot of monsters in the game and do surprisingly well. Sometimes they don't win. Sometimes they do win. They have that RNG Rebirth. They have an Ember Storm, which has less uses than the Wake of Fire, but it is definitely good at chunking down a tight formation unit as well. They have an innate physical resistance as well, so if you do get the attuned to magic, they have like 30 resistance for physical and a lot of fire resistance is 40, 60, 70 fire resistance, which is what they used to have base. The Omen of Assyrian is a better Arcane Phoenix, and in my opinion, you pay for what you get. It has utility outside of being a single entity monster. It has an ITP aura, it refreshes vigor for nearby units, and it has 50-50 melee stats. So they can do a lot of things in the game. Now, the perfect vigor it has does not apply to itself, it only applies to allies. So during the course of the game, it will get tired and it will be exhausted. However, the other entities next to it will not be exhausted.
Okay.
Welcome to my life.
I was getting excited where I'm like, oh wow, this thing's gonna perfect figure throughout the game. It'll be fine. It doesn't apply to itself. Okay.
Yes, it only applies to allies. That arguably keeps it kind of balanced because it's not like a solar engine that's always. You can snipe it basically throughout the game. It will get tired. It will get weaker. But
Or
it right next to it will not get weaker. Okay, so that's Phoenixes. Let's go into dragons. All dragons do the same thing. They're just there. They punch hard. They have breath attacks. Now, which dragon you take honestly depends on which breath attack you want and if you need to duel enemy monsters. You can take the Sun Dragon if you just want breaths to clear chaff. It has a wider breath radius, especially if you get the right angle, which is from the side of a formation. You take the Moon Dragon if you want a better combatant and a slightly better breath attack for single entities. They're still good. All breaths are still good into infantry clumps, but the Sun Dragon is the best, and the Moon Dragon's like a middle ground. It's a good combatant. It has a good breath attack. It's the middle of the road. Generally, if you don't know which dragon to pick, but you want a dragon, you just take the Moon Dragon. The Star Dragon is the better duelist and has the most focused breath attack for a single entity. So much so, it's limited to one. But yeah, it has really good combat stats, good armor, good missile resist. Terror-causing entity that's really strong. It flies. It gets into the right engagements it wants to, usually. You pay for what you get.
doesn't the Carmine Dragon have the most focused breath attack?
Yeah. Now. It used to be the Star Dragon.
Fucking Carmine Dragon.
The power creep is real. Imagine you could take 2 Carmine Dragons. Oh my god. That'd be crazy. Alright, so that's dragons. Dragons are very easy. I find them. Okay, actually, some people find them hard to use. Let me go over them. So a dragon, when you use a double dragon build, ideally you're not engaging with the dragon until you've exhausted your breath attacks. So you clear all the chaff and then you go after the single entities while you still have support on the field. So you'll have like a few spearmen or something to kind of saturate them with. It would be the same if it was one dragon, like a Imric build. You pair him with Starlance for the fire attacks, and you have Fireborn soak in with him to charge whatever it is you want to kill. But the dragons are. Once you learn how to use dragons, they're generally very easy to use. They have a tendency to get focused because most people fear dragons from the High Elf roster. They don't like Imric, they're going to build around Imric. And if they build around Imric, they're building around any other dragon. So that's just something you have to be aware of. Sometimes you can expect to see some kind of dragon counter. Handguns, spam, net and delete something, anything Illuminarch. things like that. They got rid of the fire resistance. Your only artillery piece is an Eagle Claw boat thrower. CA, please help me. They have use cases. They can snipe artillery pieces pretty well. They have, in my opinion, a decent range for an artillery, 380. They're not at the 400 range like most other artillery, but once they get in range, they start sniping artillery models pretty fast. They have very concentrated fire, and the spread shot is useful for chunking down infantry. It's good for blob punishing if you're expecting a blob. It's good into boxy factions like Cathay or Chaos Dwarves or Dwarves. It's them as well. Outside of that, there's not much to say about them. They do on the tin what they should do, and nothing more. That's kind of a problem on this roster. But yeah, 700, not a bad unit.
But when I say I would like a High Elf Dark Elf Slanesh DLC, people yell at me that the High Elves have no more units. Which, sure, maybe tabletop they don't, but Vampire Coast didn't exist on tabletop. They just made it up, so you could get like a better bolt thrower type artillery piece, like a Phoenix Claw bolt thrower, give it fire damage, longer range, more damage.
I would like to see another artillery piece for sure in the coming DLC. Just something different, something that adds. It feels whatever. Tiles really struggle against armored large in high quantities. Like let's say like a Zargard push with the Frostworm, or like Warriors of Chaos was like a Chaos Warrior spam with Chaos Knights.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that clears either armored infantry or armored large, like focuses it really well. Because the Eagle Claw bolt thrower tends to miss as well when things are moving fast. And with all the speed creep that's happened, they miss a lot more and have gotten a lot worse. And well, sisters they have good range, but by the time the enemy have closed in with Chaos Knights, you get like 2 volleys off. And the Chaos Knights are still perfectly healthy and actually killing your spears, the dedicated anti-large unit. Haha.
Alright, so here's my High Elf DLC. It's all their special forces units. There's the Sky Cutter, which, whatever, people want that, but sure, Sky Cutter, flying chariot thing. Then you get Phoenix Claw bolt throwers, which are fire damage and fire weakness imbuing bolt throwers. And then you get Dragon Claw bolt throwers, which are much more damage but more expensive. Get Shadow Riders, Shadow Warriors, but on horseback like Illyrian Reavers, just stock better melee stats Illyrian Reaver archers. And then give me some sort of stocked armor-piercing infantry with Vanguard deployment. I don't know what you want to call them. Lethanar's Bloody Balls or something, but boom. DLC, done.
Yeah, for sure. I want to see what they'll do with the Sky Cutter.
I personally want a Flying Scourge Runner unit. I will get killed and crucified by the multiplayer community, though. But the Tyrannoc Chariot is very limited in what it can do. Unless they buff it somehow, its missile capability. I don't mind the Eagle Claw, but not a Scourge Runner that can fly. It will definitely need limiters, probably only allow 2, I guess. But
Flying
I'm
skirmishes.
sure if it's appropriately priced, it will be fine. It should not cost 700 and do what a Scourge Runner does, for example. But it should be costed appropriately, and it should be able to pay for itself, at least.
Yeah, Flying Skirmish is like a larger problem than if High Elves get it, the game is over. It's like, nah, enough factions already have it, and it's really toxic, so that unit class just needs like a rethink.
I definitely could use some more counterplay. I do agree. It's something I want, but I know I'll be crucified for. But here I am. We got Silver Helms that don't work. We got a faction that is weak to armored and large. But hello, what can you do? Give me armored large, anti-large flying cavalry. Yes.
All right, let's wrap up with some hypothetical builds. So if you are running into, what do I feel like doing? Let's say you run into Nurgle.
Nurgle. Okay. Let's do this. There's a couple of things you do. I guess for practice purposes, I'll take something a little bit more generalist than my all cavalry build. So let's do this. Techless is pretty good here. The Archmage of Life on a dragon is pretty good here. For this one, I'll take Techless. Taking it with a basic kit of Flock of Doom Regrowth Net, Sword of Techless on a horse, Greater Arcane Conduit, and Potion of Troy. I'll probably take 4 silver. That'll just be a charge defense unit to run cavalry behind. Gonna take 2 Reavers to take the Fireborn. And then this is where it kind of gets, what do you want to do? Do you want to do Sisters of Everlord to punish, to have a Kugath Assurance, or do you just want to go more Reavers? It depends on the player. I would say go more Reavers. You have more counter skirmish with this too. So more cavalry is nice. Rot Knights are a thing, so you can probably bring a dragon, Star Dragon. This build is very thin, but it does what it has to do. So against Nurgle, you could do something like this. You could also just do a bolt thrower and bring Silver Helms. Something like this is also pretty good. If you want to drop the dragon and go wider, you can also do that. Just bring your Kugath Assurance and go wider. Now, what to expect from Nurgle lately has been Rot Knight Rush. Rot Knights with Pestigors under them. I've seen... I don't know the names of the units, hang on. I've seen the Angels of Decay. I've seen Soul Grinder Kite, double Soul Grinder with the ammo removing one. Is pretty good. Is actually why I started taking Reavers over Sisters of Avalorn. Because the Sisters of Avalorn really need that ammo. Whereas with the Reavers, you can dodge the shots. And they don't need to be firing all the time while you're advancing. So this is a very... if I'm taking Reavers, I don't need the archers. You can just take more infantry. Against Nurgle, actually, ranges are pretty good. They beat Pestigors, and they beat all the great weapons chaff that you usually see. You usually see a lot of great weapon kind of infantry. You see Forsaken as terms of infantry too.
I find the great weapon spam against High Elves weird because you don't need the armor piercing versus Spearmen. Spearmen have high melee defense, not high armor, but
I think it's because most people want the melee attack, which is still pretty low, to be honest.
I mean,
also,
numbers of the same.
Counter charging with great weapons into like cavalry is really good. Still,
true.
So that's pretty nasty.
Okay, all right. What about your dear old friends, the Wood Elves?
This is actually a harder matchup. What I do is, let me say I'm not memeing. And don't laugh at Tyrion. I promise. Hang on. Give me a second. Take your life caster. You take her on a horse. Put her on foot. Take Earthblood. You take Flesh to Stone. You do your Shadow Warriors. Do your Cavalry. Yes, 2 Spearmen. You have 2 Spearmen. That's usually order 2 Spearmen. 2 Spearmen. You have your Shadow Warriors. You have Tyrion, and you have your Life Mage. This veil is very small, and you can go wide. So this is option 1 is Kite, to counter Kite with them. Tyrion is tanky, he can fight Durthu. if you want to bait out the prey of Anathrema, you just send Tearing in, they'll net him. You cast Flesh to Stone, and you pop Faint and Riposte, and he has 80% physical resistance. The Way Watches will literally tickle him. Then you run away when Prey of Anathrema is gone. And then you just proceed to rush the rest of the high elf build with your cavalry. If you don't want to play the kite style, you go very cheap. You take two, I think it's like 2 white lions, bunch of spearmen, and you just archer max from here. Take your 4 archers. I like to take 4 Seaguard, 2 on each side. So my formation would be something like this. We have chief. You have for the caster, you can go like Buna. You see, yeah, Buna girl on foot, and you just go really wide. It can be very hard for what else to crack this. I'd say this one is weaker to like a War Dancer rush, unironically, because even when they get in at half HP from taking all the archer fire, they will still blend the spearmen. And it depends on. This is pretty good at dealing with the wide Wood Elf build. Outside of that, maybe like the 20 stack build. You have Buna for the Way Watchers, you have Buna for the Wild Hunters of Kurnas. You don't want to bring Buna, bring Flock of Doom. If you don't want to bring Flock of Doom, bring that. It's up to you. But Wood Elves is, you can play it either way, kite or just a boxy kind of style with high elves.
Okay. All right. I'm seeing a lot of archers. I'm seeing a lot of silver helms, strangely enough.
Well, they do well into Wild Riders. They do enough. Especially if you're shooting the Wild Rider with no armor. They should do fine. Should.
Fair.
Yes. But White Lions also do get into the Cavalry. So if you don't want to send in the Silver Helm, you can send in the White Lion. They absorb the non-armor piercing shock damage really well, and they punch back enough. They have enough melee attack where they really do well into Cavalry here.
All right. Well, we are running out of time. I told you ahead of time I had to go at 8 a.m., and we are at 7:57. So with the last 3 minutes, I will ask you, sir, is your World Cup team going to win it all?
We got Taco and Taco Cheats, so yeah, I do assume we will definitely be winning some games.
You got Taco, Turin, Strat Game, yourself, and
Gotrick.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, we got a pretty nice group, I have to say.
I know who your opponent is already. I haven't told your team because they're not done. You have to play all 5 games, but one side has achieved a score of 3, so I know they won.
So they've already advanced, basically.
Yeah, I just don't want to tell your team yet, because then you guys will start scheduling with them, and they'll schedule with you, and they won't finish their other games, and that'll be a whole fucking mess.
Yeah, that's understandable. I helped you manage the other event you had. I saw all the problems people had.
Yeah, I mean, you're still seeing the problems right now. You're just not directly dealing with them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I do help you. You can always message me for help.
it's true. Ryder, with the final 2 minutes, you don't do YouTube content, but you do other content. Would you like people to know where to find that?
Yeah. I draw mostly Warhammer art, fan art, whatever people want to commission me to draw. I'm sure you can link my Twitter in the description, I guess. And that's after when you link my Twitter, I have all my links there as well.
All right. And I will link that Twitter, and I'll make a note to myself. And to anybody in the comments who's going to say hurtful things about me, look at the description before you tell me I forgot to link it. Just because I don't link it in the title of the video like some other YouTubers, it's in the description. Don't say I didn't link my co-host channel. That's
Don't worry,
hurtful.
I will check to see if the link is there, and I will make a comment. So it is confirmed it is there.
I did the tier list of Tequila Sunset, and like...
I remember. I saw.
my feelings got hurt so bad. Some people were like, "Man, you just fucked up to kill Sunset." I'm like, "It's in the description."
What do you mean?
All right, all right. Thanks for your time, Ryder. You have a great morning.
You too, sir.
Rawr.
Subscribe, yes, yes.